Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector, and run and gun shooters are some of my favorite games on the Nintendo Switch. In fact, I just heard that there's going to be another Terminator game that's supposed to be releasing, I think in September. I think it was September 5th. It's supposed to be Terminator 2 No Fate. That's supposed to be coming out for the Switch, the PS5, the Xbox. It's coming out on most platforms. But the really interesting thing about that game is it looks like it's pretty much a literal reenactment of the Terminator 2 movie. And if you haven't had a chance to watch that, or if you've never seen Terminator 2, that movie is a pop culture classic. It's definitely one that I recommend you go and check out. But definitely excited about seeing a game like that kind of reimagined in a 2D format on a console like the Nintendo Switch. So that's definitely exciting news for someone like me, especially a fan of run and gun shooters. Looking at the footage on it has like these elements of Contra to it. It definitely has that whole Contra feel, but then it also has points in the game where it kind of reminds me of Metal Slug in a way. So really cool visuals on it from what I was able to see. Definitely interesting. And when I saw that it was coming out in September, I started to wonder, like, where will I be able to pick some of these games up? Because I caught an article from Game Rant the other day, actually today, that basically highlighted something that we already know, right? That physical game sales are declining. They've been declining steadily for years now, but the article also highlighted the fact that major retailers like Target, Walmart, Best Buy, they're truly phasing that stuff out. And so it's kind of interesting, are we only going to be able to buy physical games online? Like, will we only be able to order them and have them mailed to our homes? Will there still be cases where we can go and actually see these games before we pick them up at like a major retailer? And what will that mean for gamers who live in certain areas? If you live in a major city like a New York, a California, you know, you know, Chicago, if you live in, even like a Miami or an Atlanta, if you live in, Philly, if you live in a certain major city, odds are you have options. You're gonna have options for picking up video games physically. You'll have at least a couple GameStops that you can go to. You'll have your mom and pop shops that you can go to. And then obviously you'll still have like your Targets and your Walmarts and stuff like that. And I think even what each Target and Walmart carries, and Best Buy for that matter, I think even that is going to vary based on location. And so if you're in an area where, your retail locations for physical games are limited, does this mean that you are now subject to ordering your games strictly online? And will it be easier to phase out physical games completely when we no longer see them and the only way that we can get them is by ordering them online? And I think I could easily see that being the natural progression as to how this is phased out. First they're going to get you used to not seeing physical games at all because you just won't see them in a Target, in a Best Buy, in a Walmart. You just won't see them on the shelf anymore. And the only time you'll really realize or know that there's a physical version of a game is by looking it up online, but you won't have many options to actually see the game in front of your face. And so I think, phasing them out of the stores is going to be part one of that. But then I think, once people get used to no longer seeing physical games in stores anymore, then what's going to happen is I think they're going to slowly start phasing them out online, where you won't even be able to buy the games online anymore. And I think the responsibility, I guess, for keeping up, um, with the market demand for physical, I think that burden is then going to wind up resting on the shoulders of the publishers themselves. You know what I mean? So if the same way Super Rare, handles its own physical stuff, strictly limited, things like that, I could easily see a day where a lot of these gaming companies, if you want to order their games physically, you'll have to go to directly to their website and order the game physically. And even then, I don't know how profitable that will be for a lot of these companies, especially if they're able to charge you the same amount as they would for a physical game, or if they're able to charge you the same amount for a digital game as they would for a physical game. To me, it just doesn't behoove a company to want to continue producing physical. It just costs them more money to make the physical item. So what the runway looks like on this, I think, is really interesting, and what it's going to mean for the community. It's something that we talk about all the time, so I'm not going to kind of beat that dead horse. Well, I guess it's not dead. You know, we're kind of just watching and waiting. But I guess my question is, when do you genuinely think the shoe is going to drop for physical games? How much of a runway do you think that we have when it comes to being able to buy games physically in a retail store? I'm not going to say altogether, because I think we have a ways to go from physical games being phased out altogether, but just within the context of being able to buy physical games at major retailers, how much longer do you think we have with major retailers carrying physical games? I think that is the question of the day, because that again is going to be like the first real shoe to drop. Once that's completely phased out, that's when you know the ball is fully rolling. A lot of people have their concerns with GameStop because, outside of like Target, Best Buy, and things like that, GameStop is kind of like the last major bastion for physical games. But with the direction that we've seen GameStop take over the past couple months slash years, a lot of doubts are forming around GameStop as well, with them closing a large number of stores, with them focusing more on trading card games, uh, you know, bobbleheads or pops, action figures, toys, plushies, with GameStop feeling more of like a toy slash hobby store as opposed to a just a traditional video game store. There are a lot of concerns with even GameStop remaining that last option for physical video games. And again, I think if companies tend to copy each other with certain things, right? And I think if not buying video games at a major retailer becomes the norm, it wouldn't shock me if GameStop followed suit based on it just not being as profitable for them to continue selling physical games. And they're already positioning themselves away from gaming, in my opinion, that I could really see how, you know, just this position that they're taking now would make it even easier for them to kind of phase out the in-store physical purchases of video games in the future. But this is all still quite fascinating because we haven't fully seen that first shoe drop yet, but I do think it's going to come with major retailers. And my question is, how long before we actually see it phased out at major retail stores? Let me know your thoughts on this, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.